Hello once again, happy to be among you in such a lovely group. When I was asked to come and present some sources of data for us as fundraisers and capacity builders, I thought of the very old school sources, probably most of you are familiar with, because we need it for our fundraising strategy when we are formulating it or updating it. But then 2 days ago we had a seminar on artificial intelligence, and all these apps and tools will be the sources of all the data. Very soon, it's actually happening already, but until it overwhelms us completely, I'll give you some old school sources of data. And I will go from the big perspective to my country, where we could look for some relevant data. So the first one is the Charity Aid Foundation World Giving Index, which probably most of you know, and it's probably the most complex index which is covering the field of philanthropy globally. The latest edition, 2022, covered 119 countries, and it gathers data by asking these 3 questions: whether you have helped a stranger or someone you didn't know, whether you donated money to a charity, or whether you volunteered your time, and then build scores and rankings. And this is the development, the global development of that index since 2009, and the particular volunteering, donating, and helping parts of it. And it might not look like that, but it seems that in 2021 we have been living the best times of the philanthropic behavior, because it was the highest level of helping the stranger, highest level of giving, and highest level of volunteering, at least for this period. So I gathered some data for Slovakia, and we are also getting improving. So currently we were number 53, and in giving number 36. So you can go there and check your country or the country you are interested in, and put it into broader perspective. Then there is another global philanthropy indices by the Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, which studies 93 markets, and it also focuses on Central Europe, and these countries are covered in this region. I will not name them, but this is how we currently stand. In 2022, as you can see, the best environment for philanthropic giving was in Romania. The second was the Czech Republic, Slovakia was the third, unfortunately Hungary, the last one, at least in this group. Then there is an organization called Philea. If you know or heard, if you knew European Foundation Centre, they got together with Daphne, I think, and they are working and producing some data on the sector, and especially they partnered with this Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy and produced such report called the Philanthropy Environment in Europe. And they are covering 6 areas: ease of operating, tax incentives, cross-border philanthropic flows, political environment, economic and socio-cultural environment. And they are dividing Europe into 5 regions, into Balkan countries, Central Europe, Northern Europe, Southern and Western Europe, as you can see based on colors. So if you are interested, of course, the most developed environment, Northern and Western Europe. Southern Europe is probably the least developed. And there's something called ERNOP, you might have heard of them, European Research Network on Philanthropy. And it's a community of researchers, individuals and academic and research institutions, and they create profiles of giving in different countries. At least for Slovakia, they are not very updated, so it's very old. But still, it seems there is something happening. So they are producing some papers, organizing some conferences. but I haven't heard of such global study as Giving Europe as they did in 2013 or 15 or yeah. Then the European Fundraising Association we started in 2020 in cooperation with Salesforce. We try to monitor the situation of non-profits and especially fundraising across different European countries. And it continued the previous 3 years. Some questions were repeated so we could compare it over time and across the border. And it was conducted in 6 or 7 languages. And so then we could compare like how, especially in this pandemic and post-pandemic times, the situation or fundraising was changing. Then in this region, in this country, there is an organization called Social Impact Alliance for CEE. And they have produced a study called Philanthropy in CEE in 2020, which covered 4 Visegrad countries, Slovakia, Czech Republic, Poland, and Hungary first. And 2 years later, they came up with further countries covering the Baltics, but also Slovenia, Croatia, Bulgaria, and Romania. So I have data from the first study, but if you're interested in the second study, it is freely available on the website. And what is interesting here, at least for me, what was interesting was the level of giving in this regional comparison. So the biggest gifts are obviously given in the Czech Republic. Slovakia is the smallest country out of these 4, was the second. Hungary was 3rd and Poland 4th. They also estimated the amount of how much was donated in these countries. So how big philanthropic markets there were. And also some forms of donation techniques that were used mostly. So this was the bigger picture about the environment, but then, of course, we need to know as much as we can about donors, existing or potential donors. So we are trying to gather as much information as we can, and as much is available, out of our databases, out of our CRMs, but also out of the studies which are available either freely or as paid versions. And I don't know, and correct me, about our countries having such studies, but this is example from the UK, and quite old. This is freely accessible, but there is, and Richard will probably know better, and there is a more up-to-date and more paid version, which I found online. But if we have access to data like this, which would describe us what kind of donor groups, or in a way consumer groups which could be giving or which are already giving. So if we have this data with all the characteristics, motivations, and behavior, that would be really helpful in our strategizing, fundraising strategies. So what do we have available in my country? We don't have official government data in a way that the government does not know how much is given. There is only data collected by the statistical office. And they have a category of non-earning organizations. But it is much broader than just NGOs. And I managed to get that data from our statistical office. And that's the development over time in total donations and support from individuals, domestic support. So if you put it into a decade perspective, this is how the pie has grown since 2001 until 21. And it seems like a significant growth. And they also have a category of total income, which includes all other grants and partnerships and earned income. Then we have the tax mechanism, which is similar as in Poland, Hungary, Romania, Lithuania. What is specific about Slovakia is that companies can allocate even up to 2% of their income tax. And this data is available, how much was allocated by individuals and by companies. So we can estimate like what a big pie is available through this mechanism, tax mechanism. And then, of course, there is secondary data on online portals. And some of them are really very detailed. This is the oldest one. This is the mostly used donation platform used by almost 800 organizations already, and it allows regular giving. And you see the average one-off gift is 44 euros, regular gift 16 euros. And different payment mechanisms. And this is how what they managed to collect only through this portal. So these are global numbers, and it almost has an exponential growth. So this is also an indication of data which tells us that the giving is growing, regular giving is growing. This is the level of most one-off gifts in Slovakia, or at least in this portal, 50 euros, which is similar to what the Social Alliance has come up with. Most regular gift is 10 euros. 20 euros is second most frequent. And they have also data how it develops in December, the month when there is the biggest giving, or what's the average donated sum. And these are other. Donio, Zuzana can talk about Donio. I have some data from her, so you can approach her. If you're lucky enough and your organizer of Giving Tuesday is publishing some data, I presume I don't have to explain what Giving Tuesday is, but you don't have it. It's something which is to promote and stimulate philanthropy by creating public awareness and supporting organizations and mobilizing them. And the providers are also publishing some data, how much, or estimations of how much was collected on that particular day. It's Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and Giving Tuesday. Yeah, this is when the shopping season in the US started, and that's someone thought that it would be good to stimulate giving instead of promoting shopping. So, just to sum it up, where we could turn to for sources of data, statistical offices, our governments, if your government is collecting and publishing some data. Some national fundraising associations are making or producing annual reports on giving in their countries, in their markets. If you are lucky enough to have in your country an academic institution or a research center, or if there is an organization like Klon Jawor in Poland, they tend to produce some data. There are organizations whose mission is to develop philanthropy, giving, and fundraising, so turn to them and try to ask or dig for some data from them. There might be some consumer profiles collected by or created by commercial agencies. Of course, public polls and surveys. If you want to go down to the level of your organization, then try to study websites and annual reports of similar organizations than yours, especially your biggest competitors. And then, of course, media, press, databases, rankings, anywhere. Thank you.